Welcome to today's Explainer. We are unpacking a truly fascinating and deeply personal journey today. We're looking at what happens when a woman finds herself completely isolated, feeling like life is just completely stripped away every single support system, and there's literally no one left but God. Whether you're deeply familiar with this material or you're just curious about the psychology and theology of isolation, the way this experience is framed is absolutely thought-provoking.
All right, let's jump right in by challenging a core assumption we almost all hold. You know, when friends disappear or relationships completely collapse, our immediate gut instinct is to feel abandoned. But the source material argues that the sudden disappearance of these support systems isn't abandonment at all. Instead, it's framed as a deliberate divine alignment. It suggests that, while sometimes God actually allows the crowd to fade out just to make room for himself.
So, when that noise finally fades, you enter what the text calls the wilderness. But we really need to redefine the wilderness here. It's not a penalty. It's definitely not a timeout. Think of it more like God's personal workshop for preparation. It's presented as a highly sacred place of transformation. The absolutely crucial point is that isolation isn't a sign you've done something wrong. It's actually a sign that something entirely new is being built.
And this isolation isn't just some random chaotic event. It's a very intentional, step-by-step process. Step 1, the people fade. Step 2, the distracting noise of everyday life and that constant need for external validation finally breaks. And then, step 3, only once that true stillness is achieved, the gentle whisper is heard. Because let's face it, a loud life makes it nearly impossible to hear a gentle God.
The Apostle Paul's experience in 2 Timothy hits right at the absolute heart of this. God actually allows the crowd to walk out so that you finally notice the one who never leaves the room. It's this profound, almost counterintuitive idea of letting people fail you so you can finally learn who is truly faithful.
So the natural question you've got to be asking right now is why? Why go through this incredibly painful silencing process? Why does the noise have to entirely stop for this transformation to actually take place?
Well, the answer really lies in how we treat God when things are loud. In the noise, God is so often treated as a plan B, the one you run to when everything else completely falls apart. But the pivotal point is that in the absolute stillness, a woman stops depending on human voices. She realizes God isn't some backup plan. He's the absolute foundation of her destiny. Her whole identity shifts from being someone's partner or helper to standing entirely on her own spiritual foundation.
To really ground this, just consider the biblical story of Hagar in the wilderness. Forgotten and entirely unwanted by society, she finds herself completely alone. Yet it is exactly in this barren, empty place that she discovers her true identity, simply by being seen and named by God, declaring, "You are the God who sees me." The mirrors of other people's validation just shatter, and she finally sees her true reflection.
Now, there's a super bold claim being made here about crutches. The text argues that God removes your crutches to teach you how to stand. And these crutches aren't just people. They can be your daily routines, your desire for control, your carefully curated personal image, or the need for approval. These are stripped away strictly for training, so a woman discovers the massive strength that was already placed inside her.
Naturally, when those familiar comforts and crutches fall apart, it feels exactly like a devastating loss. I mean, it's brutal. But this is actually framed as liberation. God isn't breaking your life down, he is breaking you out. You basically lose what you thought you needed to discover the only thing you truly need.
Which brings us to a really pivotal transition in our journey today. We have to address the absolute elephant in the room, the intense pain of this isolation. How in the world should we process it? Is pain the actual enemy here?
The source material gives a definitive no. Pain is not a punishment. It actually acts as a purifier. The sheer pain of having no one becomes the very classroom where your purpose is prepared. It's an escort that brings you to a much deeper understanding rather than an enemy that's just trying to destroy you.
We see this vividly mapped out in the story of Hannah in 1 Samuel. She was in a deep, agonizing classroom of pain, misunderstood, mocked, feeling entirely empty and broken. But her tears didn't push God away. They drew him so much closer. Her deep suffering literally became the altar where her miracle was conceived. That pain pushed her into a depth of prayer she otherwise never, ever would have reached.
So, the crucial takeaway here is that brokenness births calling. Just as the book of James reminds us, the testing of faith isn't just some random suffering. The crushing you experience today is actually the anointing of tomorrow. Some destinies can literally only be entered through the door of pain.
And as that pain purifies, something pretty remarkable happens to a woman's identity. As the loud noise of external expectations disappears, she blooms in the silence. She begins to recognize these incredibly powerful historical archetypes taking shape within her own identity. She finds the warrior spirit of Deborah, the deep, unwavering loyalty of Ruth, the immense courage of Esther, and the quiet surrender of Mary. She finds traces of all of them right inside herself.
All of this deep solitude and purification builds what is defined here as unshakable faith. Now, this isn't a fair-weather, convenient Sunday morning kind of faith, no way. This is a fire-tested, storm-certified, wilderness-rooted trust. It rests entirely in God, completely independent of whatever the outcome might be.
The prophet Habakkuk illustrates this perfectly. This is what you'd call a dangerous faith. And why is it dangerous? Because it's the incredibly resilient posture of someone who has lost almost everything, yet absolutely refuses to lose her praise. Nothing moves a woman with this kind of faith, because her trust no longer depends on her circumstances at all.
As we look at the ultimate purpose of this entire journey, we really need to completely reframe the concept of isolation. There is a profound distinction here. Your loneliness is not a dusty shelf where you've been discarded and forgotten. Actually, scratch that. It's not a shelf at all. It is, in fact, an active womb.
Building on that exact metaphor, loneliness is a delivery room. Purpose almost always grows in quiet places. Just take Elizabeth, who was hidden for 5 whole months during her pregnancy. Why? Because some blessings and callings are simply too sacred, too holy, to be formed in public spaces. They require the absolute secret isolation of the delivery room.
The reassurance here is incredibly powerful. You are not being overlooked. As Isaiah highlights, you are being called by name. God intentionally isolates, hides, and incubates the women he plans to heavily use. You are not being set aside, my friends. You are being set apart.
When you put all of this together, this really beautiful realization emerges. You might feel like you are falling apart, but you are actually falling into alignment. You are transitioning from a season of feeling broken into a powerful, appointed season of becoming. The woman who emerges from this isolation will absolutely not be the same woman who entered it.
So, as we wrap up this explainer and our deep dive into the refiner's fire, we're left with a truly profound challenge. If this silence isn't empty, and if this loneliness is actually the fertile soil for growth, ask yourself, what unstoppable, unshakable purpose is waiting to be birthed from your time in the wilderness? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating perspective with me today. Let that question sit with you, and I'll catch you next time.